This is Writers Not Writing, the show where you can get to know your favorite writers and soon-to-be favorite writers by listening to them confess to the ways they procrastinate. Thanks for procrastinating with us. I'm Benjamin Gorman, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer. I write novels and collections of poetry and stuff. Doug tries his best to make me sound better. And each week we have a secret word to listen for. If you catch it, you earn the right to take an extra break at the time of your choosing from whatever is stressing you out. From Not a Pipe Publishing, welcome to Writers Not Writing.
Today's secret word is Portlandy.
Today's show is brought to you by New Horizons, the first book in the Europa trilogy by Michelle C. Lee. More on that at the ad break. And today's guest is Zaji Cox. Zaji is the author of the hybrid genre memoir Plums for Months, out May 9th from Forest Avenue Press. She has published poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction, and loves exploring and combining different ways of storytelling. She's also a dancer and an animal lover. Zaji, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to be here.
And to re-record, let's just acknowledge that. So we did a dress rehearsal because I'm an idiot and I forgot to hit the record button. So, I mean, we are consummate professionals now. We have practiced.
Yes.
So, and it means that you've been in your costume longer than most. So folks who are viewers of the show know we always dress up in costume. And then for the sake of the podcast listeners, we have to explain what it is that we're wearing. So tell everybody about the outfit you've had to wear for an extra hour because I forgot to hit record.
Yeah, so I've been wearing my romantic era style tutu, ballet tutu, and whole ballet costume. So kind of resembles the one that they wore in the Giselle ballet, if anyone is familiar with that ballet. So it's like a very long flowing tutu that goes like around to the knees, calf area. And I also am wearing point shoes and tights, and my hair is all done up in a bun, and I have all these flowers everywhere. And it's the whole thing.
And I am feeling particularly guilty about the fact that you've been in point shoes all this time. So when you are rehearsing for ballet, what is the length of time, the longest you've ever been in point shoes before?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see, when I was performing with the ballet company in New Mexico, we had some pretty long rehearsal days. Sundays were actually I think they were our longest days, or at least the longest days for me. So we'd be there like all day. Like, I don't know, we'd start at like 10 a.m. and go to like, I don't know, something p.m. So like not 12 hours, but like a good chunk of the day, like a work day's amount. And we'd be able to take off our point shoes, obviously, like, like massage our feet and stuff, but we'd have to be in them for a good several hours. So
that just sounds
fine.
I mean, I'm dressed up. For folks who are watching the show, I'm wearing a replica of John Travolta's suit from Staying Alive. I wanted to go with the whole dancing theme, so I got the the chest hair showing and the black shirt, white suit, the very high belt line here, 70s style. It is a little uncomfortable. It's nothing like, the shoes are just shiny black shoes. Like, it's nothing like being on point for 12 hours. That just I mean, I guess once you've done that, having to do a podcast twice, it's compared to a 12-hour rehearsal, it's no big deal. But I apologize. That's what a nightmare.
That's fine.
No.
After a while, it's just it's whatever, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, your feet have got to be so strong, and yet, I mean, I understand that over time you end up having microfractures in the bones in your feet.
I mean, yeah, there are ways that you can, that you build up muscle strength and like, tissue strength and all that to like prevent against a whole lot of, significant injury. And like, when you build muscle, you have muscle tears like every day. So, there's some of that happening, but like, yeah, I don't know. I do still have some like pain in my left big toe from this one specific ballet I did, the Spartacus ballet. And that was very long and very like taxing ballet that we did because we all had to play like multiple roles. And there's a lot of jumping and a lot of running and a lot of like dramatic acting, stage acting in that ballet. And I got like tendonitis in my toe from all of that. And today, like I still feel that. And that was almost like, gosh, that was in 2014, I think, is when we did that ballet. And so it doesn't sound like that long ago, but it was actually like 9 years ago now. So yeah, I still feel bad.
Do you know about the death in the filming of the film Spartacus?
Vaguely, yes.
Yeah, so in
I
the
do.
big chariot scene, the really famous big chariot race scene at the end, the one of the people in one of the chariots fell out and was run over and
Oh,
died
yes, that's
in
right.
and
I
they
remember that.
yeah, and the widow said,
Yeah.
keep it. This is what, he would have wanted. He wanted to be in the movies. And so this stunt person actually died. So, I mean, all things considered, you came out relatively unscathed. You've just got this
Yeah,
major
kind of.
injury. But compared to the film, Spartacus is
Yeah,
apparently a dangerous thing to put on.
definitely. Yeah, definitely very intense and a lot of stuff. A lot of intense acting and physically very demanding and yeah, very rewarding. You get very athletic out, like get a lot of, good exercise and good cardio, a lot of muscle building, all that stuff. But yeah,
So
it's a
how long
lot.
have you been doing ballet?
Well, I was a competitive gymnast first. I started that when I was 7. And then about when I was like 15 or so is when I decided to switch over to dance. I started taking ballet classes when I was 15. So technically I was very late,
I was going to say
but
that's
yeah,
relatively
'cause
late,
most
right?
it is, yeah, yeah. Most people start taking ballet when they're like, between like 2 and 4. And even when I was in gymnastics, I started that pretty late because I was 7. But yeah, I started doing ballet when I was 15, and then I started doing it more seriously like in my teens. And then because of the muscles I built like in my calves and my ankles and feet, I was able to
Right.
start dancing in point shoes. Um, so yeah, I started doing that, and then I was able to perform with a ballet company, which I was super grateful for, because that's not usually how that happens. Like you have to start when you're young, like, do a whole lot of training like through your younger years. So yeah, but that was a lot of fun. And then yeah, performed with them, and then I performed with a contemporary company. So I did some of that. And yeah, so honestly, I haven't really been dancing for like in the life of a dancer, not a very long time, but just in general, a pretty long time, I guess you could say.
Well, and so much
Yeah.
of competitive gymnastics has elements of dance. I mean, you've really been doing
Yes.
dance-ish, I mean, was that
Yeah.
in I know you're in Portland, was that in the Portland area
Mhm.
that you got into that as well?
Yeah. Well, when I was in gymnastics, we lived in Gresham.
Okay.
And so I went to a couple local gyms in that area. And then when I switched over to dance, I was here because then we had moved to Portland around that time. And then I started taking some classes at the Oregon Ballet Theater because they have a lot of really nice absolute beginning adult classes.
Oh,
And so
really?
I was like at the age where I was able to take their adult classes. And so, yeah, I started taking classes there. And then we moved to New Mexico. And then I auditioned for the New Mexico Ballet because I was like, I might as well. I'm not professional, but yeah, why not? And then I got a couple of small roles there. And yeah, I kept going back each year and just performing with them. And yeah, it
That's
was a lot of
awesome.
fun.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
when you started in the adult classes, were you the youngest in the adult class?
I think I was. Yeah, because there were a lot of people who were definitely like, not like old, well, there were some older adults there. And I loved seeing people who like weren't your typical, like, ballet age, like, younger-ish people there. I love seeing like, dancers who are, of all like across the whole age spectrum, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah, there were definitely people who were all older than me. Like I didn't see anyone who was my age, because people who are in ballet at like my age, then they're usually at a different level than I
Right. I mean,
was
you
too.
have a unique perspective,
So,
having seen it as the
mhm,
the oldest of the
mhm.
the youngest of the olds, And then I'm sure when you got into
Yes.
those companies, you were the oldest of the news, you know.
Yeah, in a way, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely have not had a traditional dance background at all. So it's been
And
an
then to add that
interesting
now,
journey.
successful, soon to be published author, like on top, that's pretty
Uh,
cool.
gosh, yeah, it's wild.
So
Definitely.
before I get, too far into writing process, it's a show about procrastination. How, have you been procrastinating in terms of pop culture? What's been drawing your attention away from your writing lately?
Well, something I did last night, actually, for the second time, I went to go see the movie Renfield. And yeah, it is a lot of fun.
I have not
I
seen it yet, and
thoroughly
I have
enjoyed it.
heard that it is just a kick. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
it's oh my God, it's so silly. Yeah, I did quite enjoy it. Yeah, I love those two actors, Nicholas Holt and Nicolas Cage, of course. They're really great in their roles, and yeah, they're really funny, and it has good amount of like kind of spooky, but also it's like a comedy too, so it's very funny, and like it has very like kind of Deadpool level humor and action at the same time.
and I
So
love
yeah.
Deadpool. Like that is right
Mhm.
up my alley.
Me too.
Um, I saw a
Yeah.
preview that was they're making a version of the story of Dracula's travels from Transylvania to London.
Yes.
In Bram Stoker's Dracula, he travels and
Mhm.
it's told like, the narrative voice says, "Oh yeah," and then he showed up. Like, it's not, and it's this
Yeah.
weird ship, came into the harbor and everyone on it was dead. The end. And it just goes on. And now they're telling the
Yeah.
story of that voyage, and it looks
Yeah.
creepy.
It does. Oh my God. Yeah. I saw that preview when I was when the first time I went to go see Renfield.
Oh,
I
that's
saw
cool.
that
That they're
trailer too, and I was
they're
like,
like, we know we've got the right audience.
yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it was definitely a very different feeling of a movie because it's, historical and it's like actually trying to be really scary
Yeah.
instead of like spooky but hilarious. Yeah, no, it's like it looks quite good. So I'm hoping it is really good because I think I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
It looks really
But
good.
I need to catch up on Renfield because that does look like a ton of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I recommend.
So what's a
Yeah,
news
for
story
sure.
that's been taking you away from your writing lately?
I don't, well, I do pay some attention to the news, but like not as much probably as most people, just because, sometimes it can just get me down a lot.
Yeah,
And
I'm a
it's
news
just,
junkie, and no shade on folks who do not, consume it as voraciously as I do. I understand it gets very depressing. So
yeah,
protect your mental
yeah,
health from the news.
yeah. Like the Facebook app, it has this like news section now. And so sometimes I switch over there just to see like, oh, local news. I should probably know what's happening where I'm living right now. That might be good for me to know. And I like scroll through it a little bit, but then I'm like, yeah, Portland still has a lot of that's sad. But yeah,
Yeah,
then after a while to kind of come out of that.
yeah, yeah.
um,
But good for you I
but
mean,
one
you're
of the
better than
things,
me about watching the local stuff because I tend to get sucked into, national and world, and it's stuff that I have no power over, right? I mean, at least in national, I can write my congressman. Like world news, here's a horror that's going on, and I have no, and so mental health wise, paying
yeah,
attention to your own local
yeah,
area,
oh
that's
my gosh,
important.
yeah, yeah, I know.
So what has been getting your attention
Oh,
about what's going to be happening in Portland soon?
well, I saw that apparently this coming week it's going to be very warm. And that's, whenever the weather gets like above 65, it makes the
Right.
news here. So, yeah, that's definitely something I'm looking forward to because I do like being outside. I like walking around. If you ask anyone who knows me, I like taking like walks that are like 1 to 3 hours long. So I just like being outside, and that definitely is something that's gotten me really excited. So yeah, I saw like some headline and it was like Portland to reach 80 degrees on Wednesday or something really crazy like that. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that. I think might be kind of weird, but it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to
exactly.
see.
We're not used to it, but it'll be wonderful. Yeah, that will
Mhm.
be a nice change. Well, and
Yeah.
I'm very cognizant. I've been looking forward to Plums for Months, your book, and I have a plum tree in my backyard. And this warm weather, my plum tree is blossomed like gangbusters. And so
That's
I am
amazing.
I'm enjoying the warmth and what the warmth promises in terms of gardening as well. So what else have you been seen any good shows lately?
Yay. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, in terms of shows, I was
Any
thinking of TV
concerts?
shows, but then my brain went to concert
Yeah.
shows. Yeah, I actually went to two concerts recently, within the past like week. Like they were 2 days separated from each
Oh
other.
wow.
The first show I went to was Muse, and they were absolutely incredible. My high school self was very excited because I used to listen to like them and Tool and the Misfits and like, another select group of artists on my iPod in high school, like all the time, just like on repeat.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, Muse was a very large part of my teenhood, and it was great to see them live.
Well, and I love Muse too, but I've only heard them. I've never seen them live, and I imagine
Mhm.
they've got kind of a Pink Floyd vibe, and I've always imagined that
Yes.
their show live is really theatrical. Like, is
Mhm.
I mean, they sound like arena rock, with the
Yes.
giant sets. And did they have that kind of stuff
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah, they definitely did. They had humongous like stage setups. Like there was a large, like demon looking thing like that they set up between like two of their songs. I don't know how they did it so quickly, but like the stage went like dark for like, I don't know, a couple minutes. And then when like the lights went on again, there was this huge like devilish looking head like in the background, and then it had like these hands coming out of the sides of the stage, so it was really big. And there
Yeah.
are like these flames that would come up during certain parts of the songs, and like it was really cool. And yeah, there was that. Then there was another like installation that they had for another several of their songs, and it was like this giant metallic head looking thing that like moved back and forth with like this giant hand, and it was like a whole thing. So I don't know, it was wild, and yeah, it was awesome.
I have so
So
much respect for
cool.
the folks who create those. One of my college roommates is a Tony Award-winning set designer. He
Mm,
does and has also worked, for these events and that kind of thing. And the brilliance that goes in, the artistry that goes into
yeah,
creating these things, and not just the artistry, the engineering. Like, how do you
yeah.
make giant hands that are moving on a stage that then can be moved around the country? Like, it's
I
amazing,
I don't know. It's just, yeah, I like, how do you build those also like between songs? How
right?
do you do that?
Yeah.
How I just want to like turn on the lights and like, I don't know, look around the stage and just like see the process of how they do all of that, because that's
Oh yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Well, and there's some
Super
bean
cool.
counter who's saying, we could just cut that out and make a little bit more money. And these are artists
Oh,
saying, no, it is worth it for us to
mm-hmm,
actually have this full theatrical experience for our viewers, who are then going to
mm-hmm.
tell their friends, no, you wouldn't believe what I saw at the Muse show, or
Yeah,
Mastodon, or what. I mean, that's so cool.
yeah, awesome. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, and then I saw Mastodon and Gojira 2 days after that. Oh my God, they were great too. Yeah, they had amazing, both shows had amazing like light shows too at the same time. So you had that like while they were just being amazing on stage. They all sounded really good. Yeah, no weird like, oh man, he sounded off tonight, I hope he's not sick. Like, we go to a show like sometimes and the vocalist sounds a little bit off.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything like that. And for the Mastodon and Gojira show, that I hadn't realized until recently that that was the first show of their tour that they were doing.
Oh,
And so
really?
it was like the first night. Yeah, they started in Portland apparently. So I was able to kind of see the first night.
Yeah, that's
But
really cool because
yeah,
they
that
often do. I mean, we're often, near the end. Somebody goes on a national
mhm,
tour and then goes and Portland and Seattle, and now we're done.
yep,
They've done the
yep,
circuit, or they start off in
exactly.
LA and then we're, the third night or whatever after
Yeah,
they've done the Bay Area. So yeah, getting to see them
yeah.
start, that's pretty cool.
I know, and they sounded amazing. It was so cool. Yeah,
That is very cool.
so many like stage features and flames happening. A lot of flames are
Yes, a lot of
happening.
flames, more flames. Uh,
Yes.
that is
Yeah, it
that
was
is very
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
So when you're besides going to amazing concerts that I am jealous of, what else have you been doing when you're not writing in terms of hobbies?
In terms of hobbies, well, I mean, I do like to be very active. I like to work out whenever I can, and whenever I feel okay to work out. Like some days I'm just more tired than others, but yeah, especially once the weather gets a lot nicer, I like to ride my bike. So hopefully this week will be a good week to do that, especially if the weather's going to get warmer. But yeah, I'll definitely want to do more of that. And yeah, one of my things that I really like to do is ride my bike near this wildlife refuge that's near my parents' house. My bike is at my parents' house, and so I just will take a day and I'll go down there and get my bike and go ride it near the it's called the Smith and Bybee Lakes Wildlife Refuge, and it's near a sewage treatment plant. Well, you have to ride past the sewage treatment plant to get there, so it's not like right next to it, but
Yeah.
the bike path kind of goes around the treatment plant. So yeah, it doesn't always smell bad when you ride over there. It just, it's not a bad experience, but yeah, but once you get to the wildlife area, it's amazing because you can see so many different creatures there. I've seen like herons and like blue herons and like turtles and deer and like snakes and lizards and eagles and hawks. Yeah, I've seen a lot of things there, and it's a really incredible place to ride your bike on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
awesome.
we are the wildlife here in Oregon. We are so lucky. I've
Mhm.
traveled to every state in the union, and I chose to live here for a reason. Like this is such a
Yeah.
beautiful place, and I live in the Willamette Valley, south of you, and
Mm.
I've gone rafting, riding up the Willamette, and it is amazing the amount of eagles, falcons, I mean, the
Yeah.
herons, that you see out on the Willamette. We are very spoiled, and that's why
Yeah.
we endure all this raininess so that there is all
Hmm.
that green. Like it's
Yeah.
an incredibly beautiful place to get to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I do love, even though it can be very Portlandy sometimes, like with the rain and the constant drizzle in the background of everything you ever do here, but it is still really nice in its own way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like it. Yeah.
So we've got to go to our ad break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask about what you've been daydreaming about. Alexandra has never been so far from home or so deep in danger. Pick up a copy of New Horizons, the first book in the Europa trilogy by Michelle C. Lee, wherever you purchase ebooks or paperbacks, or visit michellec.lee.com, Lee spelled Leigh, for short stories and more information about New Horizons. A judge of the 10th Annual Writer's Digest published ebook award calls New Horizons exemplary in its voice and writing style. Join the adventure today. Available May 2nd from Karen Eisenbrey, author of the Daughter of Magic trilogy and the Saint Rage duology, a new science fiction novel, Ego and Endurance. In this space exploration adventure modeled on Ernest Shackleton's disastrous Antarctic expedition, Ruby Ladd is commanding the first crewed mission to the asteroid belt, ready to redeem herself after a tragedy on Mars 5 years earlier. She never asked for a nosy filmmaker whose search for a story will only reopen old wounds. A trip to the asteroid belt is just what Hart Gunner needs for his next thrilling documentary. He suspects the heart of his story lies in the commander's past, but she's not talking. When disaster strikes, Lad and Gunner must work together for the crew to survive. Johanna Hoyt, author of Believing is Seeing, says, a funny, tender, and eye-opening science fiction adventure, love story, workplace drama with vivid descriptions of the wonders, perils, and incongruities of outer space, as well as the spaces inside us. You can pre-order your copy now. Also available, starting April 18th, Nancy Ballard's Tricky Ground, Book 3 of the Under Carico's Moon series. Lee Von Corey and Seth Riley discovered a community of non-human castaways whose existence threatens the future of the human settlement on the frontier planet Carico. The leader of the hidden enclave frees Seth and Lee to go back to the human settlement with one task: deliver a message of peace to Carico's leaders. Lee and Seth have miles of wilderness to cross on horseback, pursued by a contingent from the enclave. And among their fellow humans, they don't know who to trust and who has their own plans for the planet. The future of Carico is on the line. Miko Azul, author of the Demons of Morelia series, says, navigating human and interspecies culture, politics, love, betrayal, and surviving the bleak landscape of Carico complicate Lee and Seth's nearly insurmountable task of saving their world from outsiders. And Karen Eisenbrey, author of Ego and Endurance, says, a satisfying conclusion, full of thrills, twists, and lovably stubborn characters overcoming obstacles. Order your copy now. Welcome back. I'm here with Zaji Cox. What have you been daydreaming about lately?
So one thing that I just generally daydream about a lot is future projects that I would like to do a lot more of. And I'm sure I touched on this before, but I tend to have a lot of ideas that I tend to let pile up in the back of my mind. And I've been trying to get better about maintaining lists and putting them in order of what I'd like to work on the most. I'm trying to use what's the app called Evernote, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm glad someone else knows about it, because I've mentioned it to some other people who I feel would probably know what it is, and they've been like, oh, it seems
no,
like a new thing.
I had
I've
Evernote
never
for a
heard.
while. Then I took to I'd get an idea and I'd email myself. And that way it was, searchable in my email, because I found if I put it in my calendar, I'm going to do this thing, then I would look at that calendar note, 2 weeks later and go, what was that even about? Because our ideas, especially for, a poem or whatever, they don't necessarily, if you're not in that moment, you forget what was the poem I was going to write. So I, taken to writing really hasty little emails that I then send to myself.
Yeah, email can be really good for a lot of things like that, I think.
But Evernote is cool. Yeah, it's a good program, and it's nice because it does do a good job of holding onto those lists and multiple lists. And
I
do
do
you
like it.
separate them out into, here's poetry stuff that I want to do, here's writing projects, here's dance, or do you just have one list together?
I would say, I think I have, at least right now, I have just one list. And there are a couple of longer kind of book length fiction projects that I'm working on. And those are their own kind of outline types of documents there. So I do have those separate, but then in terms of for other just idea collection documents, those are just all together in the same list, just because sometimes I'm just walking and I'm that random sparrow landing on the ground near that patch of moss, it looks like a character for this story I could write, and then I just type it into the app really quickly.
Well, and I think it's good for you. I mean, because you're a multiple disciplinary artist, to maybe have those together so that you can think about how those could be connected. I've got an idea for a dance I'd like to do, an idea for a poem, and could those be connected? Have you, tell everybody about some of your work in connecting your art in the past.
Yeah. I've at least in the past couple of years, I've been trying to do more with the combination of dance and writing. So I do have my YouTube page, Zaji the Artist. It doesn't have a ton of content on there quite yet. I'm trying to make more and upload more that I have already made. But there is a video on there that is a video of me dancing, and it's put together with audio of me reading a poem of mine. And I would like to do more projects that are like that.
I think that sounds really, really cool. And the fact that it wouldn't be, there wouldn't be music, it's just the voice, actually sounds
Exactly.
powerful. Like this is just
Yeah.
dance and voice. You know, I will absolutely check that out. And for folks who are interested, we'll link to that in the show page too, so you can check out that mixture of work. But I think that sounds amazing.
Thanks.
So you have a very specific event coming up that we want to make sure to tell everybody about. Let them know, what is your big event?
Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh. So May 15th at 7 p.m. at the downtown Burnside Powell's Books location. My book launch will be happening, and I'll be in conversation with Lidia Yuknavitch, who is great. And I love her, and she's awesome.
She's amazing.
So,
Yeah, that is so cool.
yeah.
I was my fiance is an even bigger fan than I am. I think I've only read like half of her books. And my fiance grabs everyone, and for her most recent, bought 2 copies. And so it became a running gag in our, totally by accident. She bought it and then went, "Oh, Lidia Yuknavitch, I love her stuff. I need to buy that one." Yeah, you already bought it. So she, that's been a running gag. How many copies of Rust is she going to purchase? But yeah, that's this is, I mean, if you're starting up, Powell's is like, for folks who are not in the Portland area, Powell's is one of the most amazing bookstores in the entire world. It is an incredible store. And for writers, it's like you've arrived. And then to be being interviewed by Lidia Yuknavitch, who's amazing herself, at Powell's, like, this is...
yeah. It's just one of those things where I don't know if I'll be able to believe that it's happening until it actually is in the process of happening right in that moment.
or afterwards. It might be
wild.
5 minutes later, you go, that really
right
did take place.
Yeah. It's like, oh, there's photo evidence.
Yes.
There's video evidence. People are here talking about it. I guess it actually happened.
Oh yeah, and that was put together by Laura Stanfill from Forest Avenue, right?
Yeah, she's been doing really awesome stuff. She's
amazing. Yeah, Forest Avenue Press is one of Not a Pipe Publishing's, I have such deep admiration for the work that they do, and they find amazing talent too. So you got picked up by somebody who knows quality. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, they're great. I love everything that Forest Avenue has put out. Like, I haven't read every single thing, but like they all look really great. And I've definitely, taken a look at, whenever I'm in Powell's, I'm like, oh, where's the next Forest Avenue book that I can find here? Like, they're just great. I love small presses too.
Well, and it's funny because most people don't pay any attention to who published a book. Like, I have to remind myself of that as a publisher. Like, nobody, most people do not care. Nobody's going, what's the next Not a Pipe Publishing book? That's why I'm going to read it, So the fact that you actually pay attention to Forest Avenue and their lineup means they're doing something right. Like,
yes,
that's very cool.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So, totally different note. We do a weekly poll on the show where we toss up a poll on Twitter. I believe Twitter still has polls. Twitter is a total dumpster fire right now, so we'll see. But what should be, if we can do a poll, what should be our poll for this next week?
So I know we've been talking a lot about weather-related things. So my idea was, would you prefer sunny and warm weather or cold, drizzly, rainy weather?
Yes, which I think that's a great idea. That'll be good because so many of the folks who follow Not a Pipe Publishing are writers, book lovers. I will be interested to hear where writers and book lovers fall on the question of warm and sunny or drizzly and chilly. That might be an interesting breakdown there.
Yeah, I definitely hear people on like different ends of that spectrum. Like, I feel like a lot of people who live here, or were at least born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, are definitely like, they feel very strongly about, yes, definitely all the time, rainy, drizzly, cold, wet, gray weather. I have to live in this or I won't be happy, like that sort of thing. I'm like, that's cool. I don't think I could do it for that long. But then I'm kind of on the other side where I would like the sun a bit more frequently than the rain, please.
Yeah, I like the
So
sun as a
yeah.
reprieve from the rain. I like the warm, sunny days when I'm
Yes.
like, oh, today is exceptionally beautiful. Okay, now back to
Mhm.
being drizzly all the time. So the Oregon is a
Yes.
good mix of those. But
Yeah.
yeah, I have lived in places. I grew up in San Diego for years where it is,
Oh, nice.
almost never rainy. And it was like,
Yeah.
can we get a little rain, please? Can we get a weather report that's
Yeah.
different from yesterday? Because it's the
Uh,
same every day. But yeah,
yeah.
that's yeah, I'll be interested to hear where people fall on that one. So
Yeah.
while you are trapped inside on rainy days, what is a book on your to read pile that has been calling your name lately?
Well, Goodreads tells me that I have several hundred books on my to read list.
Yeah.
Um, but one book that I've been wanting to read for a while, it's an older book. And it's actually, I almost just said it's based on a movie. No, a movie that I've loved since I was a kid is based on it. It's I, Robot. I've been wanting to read
Classic,
it for a
sci-fi
long time.
classic.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
read
do
that
want to
book
read that,
before you were born. That's
I'm
it
sure.
makes me feel. Yeah, don't worry. That book is much older than I am. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good
that's
one.
old.
That's Asimov is one of the most prolific authors in American history. I think he has 205
Yeah.
books in the Library of Congress, which is
Right.
bonkers to me. But and
Yeah.
some of them feel like they were hastily written, but by and large, they're he's very good. And iRobot's nice because it's one that stands alone. So you will enjoy that one. That's a you don't have to read the entire series. It
Yeah.
coheres and it works. It's a really
Right.
good book. I'm going to cheat
Yeah.
for this one. I
Yeah. I look
normally
forward to it.
have a book that is something that's on my Goodreads pile, which is like yours. It's this enormous list, and I allowed something to jump
Yeah.
ahead. I was interviewing Jessie Kwok, and she said, oh, you've got to check out Fonda Lee's Jade City, which is the first book in the Green Bone saga. And I have a lot of respect for Jessie. If she says it's good, I've got to check it out. She told me what it was about, and I'm now just finishing up the Jade City, the first book, and I my next book on my list is absolutely Jade War, the second book in the Greenbone saga, because it is so good. So if folks are,
Um,
it's wild because it's set in this world that is, I imagine it like 19 maybe 70s or 80s Taiwan, and
mm,
yet the people have anybody who carries Jade, it confers magical power, and they are able to do these amazing, like run through walls and stuff like that. So it's kind of The Godfather meets Star Wars meets a kung fu movie. Like it's how is this,
wow.
and it is really fun. So and
That's so
also
cool.
heart-wrenching. These characters
Mm,
are wonderfully drawn and incredibly realistic. And so, when awful things happen to them, because it's a mafia movie and they don't all make it, you're just
right.
no, this person
Yeah.
can't die.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
it's really, really good. So yeah, everybody check
cool.
out Fonda Lee's Greenbone Saga. Well worth your time.
Nice. Sounds awesome.
So where can folks find you online?
So I usually like to just suggest my website, zajitheartist.com. That's where been trying to collect all of my things, like my published stuff and my like links to my book and where to order it and everything. I also link to my Instagram on there, which is just Zaji the Artist. And then there's my YouTube, which is Zaji the Artist. I like to try to keep it memorable in a certain way.
Smart, good
And
branding.
I'm also on, exactly, yeah. I'm also on Patreon, patreon.com/Zaji the Artist. um, and yeah, that's where I like post, other quick little like short fiction stories or like short poetry pieces. And I like to try to combine them with visual elements too, like little GIF images of me dancing or cool edited photos or like drawings, paintings, things like that. And yeah, so that's my Patreon page too.
That is cool. Well, yes, and it is important, folks. Support your, your favorite artists. Patreon is a great mechanism for that. So check out Zaji's webpage, which will get you to, or just, Zaji the artist at Patreon, but it's backwards, right? It's patreon.com/Zaji the artist. So
Yes.
yeah, go there and get yourself signed up and get exclusive stuff, but also support her work. So before we get to our send-off, I've got to thank a whole bunch of folks. Thanks to the artist Max Oakland, who reached out and provided one of his songs for our intro song, I Prefer the Dusk. Let Max know you like it by following him on Twitter at Max Oakland with 3 Ds. Thanks to Halisna CCO for their song Kids for the ad break. If you're in a band and would like your song used on the show, I'd love to highlight a listener's work like Max's song, so email that to me. Thanks to Doug, the producer, for making this show sound good and taking the blame when it doesn't. And I cannot forget to mention, Writers Not Writing is a production of Not a Pipe Publishing, so please go to notapipepublishing.com and check out the amazing books written by writers who didn't procrastinate too much. If you like this show, rate and review it wherever you found it. Please check out Zaji's book, Plums for Months, which drops, what's the date again for the release?
May 9th.
May 9th. So put it in your calendar, May 9th, Plums for Months, Zaji's book. And then May 15th is the big shindig, right? So be sure to check that out and get your copy. And then once you do, rate it and review it. It makes a big difference. So be sure to rate and review this show. And in both cases, tell a friend. That is very helpful. Okay, so Zaji, what should be our there are 3 things we want our audience to remember for the week. What's one thing you'd like everybody to remember?
My thing would be to remember to celebrate your small victories.
So important in this industry where it can often feel like we do this work alone, right? But celebrate those small victories. Absolutely. Also in life, as in writing, it's the spaces between the words that make it all meaningful. So don't ignore the spaces. And third, no matter how much you procrastinate, we're still proud of you.
Yes.
If I take my time,